My name is Lorian Farrell. I'm the Global Director for Knowledge Transformation and Regional Director North America at the Resilient Cities Network. I would love to introduce you to my partners here on stage, Carrie, Bronco. Please tell the audience a bit about yourself.
Sure, thanks. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. My name is Carrie Hughes. Yeah, I'm really loud anyway, so I got to be careful here.
Separate a little bit.
Carrie Hughes with Verizon. I lead a lot of our societal programs at Verizon, including our work around climate resilience, climate equity, and communities. So happy to be here.
Hey everybody, I'm Bronco. I'm with Hi-Fi, and we have a booth over there. We make tech for flooding, and I have a second position. I'm a professor at the University of Michigan, where I'm part of the Digital Water Lab, and our goal is to sort of untangle the relationship between technology and water. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so we want to get right into the exciting news that we've been alluding to over the last couple of days and in your programs. Carrie, Verizon is launching a big initiative today. Can you tell us about the Climate Resilience Prize?
Sure. So let me give a little background of why Verizon's here doing this. So several years ago at Verizon, we worked across the company to create a comprehensive responsible business plan. And we call that Citizen Verizon. And really the mission of that plan is to leverage the power of technology to enable economic, environmental, and social change and move the world forward. So as part of that comprehensive plan, we have a very deep focus on climate equity and resilience. And we knew we wanted to help communities become more resilient to climate change. So am I echoing really badly? I probably, like I said, I probably don't need this mic. So to that end, and really wanting to help communities become more resilient, we partnered with GreenBiz last year to launch the inaugural Verizon Climate Resilience Prize. And this prize awards funding to outstanding startups that are using innovative technologies to bring solutions to communities that are susceptible to climate change events. It was a really successful program, and you'll hear more about that today. But happy to announce today that we are doing a year 2 of the Climate Resilience Prize, and I'm announcing that today. Applications actually open today for startups to apply and go through April 23rd. So we're really excited to do another year of the prize.
Great, thank you, Carrie.
Yep.
And so as I mentioned, I'm with the Resilient Cities Network, and it was thinking about the three of us on stage and how very different our work lives are, our organizations, thinking about the connection, well, why are we all here together? For me, I work with 24 cities in the United States and 4 cities in Canada, although we're a global organization. And what we hear from cities a lot is that they cannot do the work of building resilience alone. They need to partner with the private sector. They need to have more access to innovative technical solutions. And the practitioners, we were talking about this earlier, practitioners in cities are passionate and smart, but they're super busy. And so they need to be able to find partnerships and links like this to bring the technologies forward. And so that's part of the reason why we're here on stage today with Verizon and with Hi-Fi, talking about this Climate Tech Prize. And Bronco, I would love to hear, I guess, now a little bit about a glimpse of the work, the technical solution that you were successful in winning the prize with last year. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Of course, I'd be happy to. So, as you already mentioned, we're a startup. We're based in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and we make tech for flooding. And so what that means is we build sensors that are powered by technologies like 5G that detect flooding, send out alerts, and then use data analytics to pull that all together to support stormwater managers and municipal managers with alerting tools, decision-making tools, as well as tools to sort of make long-term investments into infrastructure. So just some context for flooding. It's the leading cause of natural disaster damage as well as fatalities in the United States, actually globally. So more so than earthquakes and wildfires put together. And I'm originally from Florida. I went to school here, like both high school and college. And so like a lot of you locals here, I'm intimately familiar with big storms. And of course, things like hurricane make the news, and that's like very justifiable given the amount of stuff that happens with that. But what a lot of people might not know about is that inland flooding is a massive problem as well. So just for example, in 2014, a flood in the Detroit metro area, which is like where we're nearby, was the biggest flood on the record, bigger than any hurricane or anything else that happened that year. And so what we're doing is we're partnering with communities both along the coast as well as inland to try to sort of build tools to help them become more resilient to flooding, specifically leveraging these kind of technologies that we're looking at here. And so you'll see those at the booth if you stop by later.
Great. And the work you're doing is really near and dear to my heart. I'm a water resources engineer. Really fascinated with the technical aspect of your work, but also what brought me to this work of resilience and ultimately to partnering with Verizon is the word you said about communities. And we can be very technical and try to plan for every disaster, but if we're not connected to communities and thinking about the most vulnerable people in our societies, bringing that equity lens into the conversation, we'll never be resilient. And so, Carrie, that's why I think that the Verizon Prize, centering it on community and resilience while marrying it to tech is going to be really impactful. Yeah. Could you let everybody know a little bit more about the criteria of the prize and how they would go about engaging?
Mm-hmm. No, happy to do so. So this year we are again partnering with GreenBiz and the Resilient Cities Network, so thank you for the partnership, to launch the prize. And the overall purpose of the prize is really just to identify and support these emerging technologies that we really feel have the ability to address these issues at scale and reach those vulnerable populations. So the prize this year will be $500,000 awarded to 4 winners with on-the-ground tech-based solutions. So we want to make sure they're using next-gen tech, that they are working in vulnerable communities or with vulnerable populations, and that they have a proven technology that is ready to scale. And we feel like that's a perfect time for the prize to come really transform those solutions. So in addition to the funding this year, we will actually be providing consulting for a number of months after the prize to really help evolve the technology and the business models that support the startup.
Great.
Yep.
And so if you want to hear more about the prize.
Yes, right. So actually, as Bronco mentioned, Hi-Fi, which was the winner last year, has a booth here, and they could tell you everything you want to know about being a participant in the prize. And then also, if there are questions, Stephanie Kenlock from my team at Verizon will be having office hours at the booth from 1 to 2 today and tomorrow, and can answer anything you want to know about the prize details. Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit, Carrie, about 5G and why and how technology is really going to advance some of the progress we need to make in climate response?
Right. So, it's obvious that the networks and the connections that Verizon and our peers in the telecommunications space provide really enable everything we all do every day. And what's really exciting is with this 5th generation or this 5G technology that I hope you've all heard about, it really presents like a new frontier. It's the next generation of wireless technology that has extremely high bandwidth and low latency. So what that means is it can enable these really incredible technologies such as machine learning, responsible AI, augmented reality, big data analytics, and all of these things that really allow for the scale and the reach and the efficiency that we've never had before. So for us, that's the key. That's what we want to support through the prize, are the startups that are using these innovative solutions to be able to reach those populations that need it most.
Okay, great. Brandon, can you talk a bit about your experience with the prize last year? What was it like to go through the process? How did the award benefit the work that you're doing?
Sure, yeah. I can confirm winning a prize feels really fun. Now, it's So as Carrie mentioned, one of the the bigger takeaways for us, which was this kind of holistic nature of the prize. So if you're a startup considering applying, there's a much bigger picture here to sort of being introduced to the Verizon ecosystem and the sort of incredible level of depth that they have as an established company. So we were founded in 2020 during a pandemic. You can imagine what that's like to start a company during that time. And so being able to get access to people within your organization who were extremely forthcoming with their time, who teach us about things like regulations and insurance and all these other kind of things that we need to learn about beyond the technology aspect, which was just really incredible. So just working with them has been great and has allowed us to sort of accelerate our pace just by sort of speeding through the lessons that we would otherwise have to learn on our own. And then beyond that, the resources of the prize, goes without saying, are incredibly useful. And the low pressure aspect of kind of being able to work with some flexible funds to help implement things that otherwise might be under a different time schedule. So in our case, it allowed us to spend some extra time working with communities in our own backyard and in the Detroit metro region to sort of learn more about what they need. And it's resulted in actually projects now that we can do just by being able to gauge it for longer. So we're super excited right now. We have a project with the state of Michigan to pilot smart cities technologies in the context of flooding here specifically. And so that's really exciting because I think if we do a good job with that and show that it works, then these pilots have the potential to scale. So it's really been, again, answering questions, it's been an end-to-end kind of experience. And the prize is much more holistic than just a award itself.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, so I clearly have a mental block when it comes to Bronco, and his colleague Brandon. So this is Bronco. And if you go back to the hi-fi booth later to learn more about it, there is a Brandon there as well you can engage with. I'm going to go off script a little bit because we have a few minutes left. And one of the things that I'm really always struck with when I talk to our members in the cities is access to cities. And some of the challenges startups have of getting their products into cities. And wondering, Bronco, if Verizon having this exposure has helped with that a little bit, or what were some of the barriers you experienced in getting your product to market?
Yeah, for sure. I think launching a new product, I think as a lot of people are aware of in this room, is just really hard. You have to, no matter what you're working on, you have to provide value to people. It has to be useful and it has to be usable. And that latter part of useful versus usable is really kind of sounds nuanced, but it's really important distinction because a lot of the folks that we work with that like manage cities on a day-to-day basis, they have a ton of different jobs. And the last thing they need is one more new technology that they got to train people on and work with. So we've tried to make it a mission to make things really easy to use and ultimately end up in time savings. So if you come by our booth, you'll see we made our sensor so that anybody who knows how to use a screwdriver can actually operate this thing and install it. So you don't need special training or a master's degree or whatever to deploy these things. And so that was step number one. But more so than that, I think one of the bigger barriers just deals with technology adoption across the municipal landscape. I think there's a very big misconception, a massive misconception out there that for some reason, local government is averse to technology adoptions. They're risk averse. And that's actually couldn't be further away from the truth. What's actually happening is they have jobs to do and they're stewards of public funds. But they're deeply aware of what technology can bring. Like they see it everywhere around them, right? They come home, they have smart thermostats. Of course, those things can play a role in city management, but you can't just adopt something because it sounds cool. And so that's why these partnerships with the Verizon and others allow us to pilot these technologies, show proof of concept so that somebody who's considering adopting them can say, okay, this is vetted rather than just some like cool, shiny thing. And so, it's a big picture to adoption, but that kind of captures roughly our experience.
Great, thank you for that. And Carrie, final word to you. I know you've been working really hard to stand up year 2 of the prize.
Yep.
I'm excited to see what technologies are going to be brought forward. Is there anything from last year that really surprised you or jumped out at you that you were that really showed you this prize is on the right path of bringing these technologies forward? Just personally, I know Verizon is really invested in this work, but for you personally, how would you think about this program?
Yeah, we had a lot of learnings from year 1. I think what we got really excited about is, the ability for the prize to really seek out and find all of this innovative technology as a mechanism, because our ultimate goal in even doing the prize is to find that technology, those startups, so that we can do real implementations on the ground. It's the programmatic work that we're trying to really enable with this prize. And so seeing how, I mean, we had 100 applications last year, so just seeing all we can only have so many winners, but really understanding the different types of technology that are out there that we can kind of support through our ecosystems was a real learning. And to that end, that's sort of why we started. The funding is great, but it's really how can we as a company and our partnerships that we form really help these startups address these challenges. And so that's where the kind of the consultative part comes in, to say not just the funding, but we want to help you over a period of a year really get, you know, face these challenges, like working with cities. We have relationships in cities ourselves, so how can we bring us all together in an ecosystem to really move this technology forward? Because we have a vested interest in that as well, so it really is a win-win for everyone. So
I'm excited about that part as well. I think the staying in it for the long haul, it's not a one and done, but the support that the startups can receive is going to be really important. And then how can you share that, push that forward, and support the communities for the long haul as well? Because ultimately the idea is to make people's lives better through technology. So thank you both for the chat today. And thank you all for coming to listen to this exciting announcement of the year 2 of the Climate Resilience Prize. Again, if you want to have more information, Stephanie Kinlock will be at the booth along with Bronco and his colleague Brandon. Check out the website for more information. The challenge is live as of today. So it is open today. We're really looking forward to seeing the innovations that will come forward this year. And keep an eye out on the website for more updates. Yep.
Spread the word. If you know startups working in the climate tech space, please, a lot of it's word of mouth, so please spread the word for us.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. Happy to kick things off. My name is Nico Ramirez, and I'm the founder of Paradigm Evergreen. We're reinventing how the world does laundry to make it orders of magnitude more convenient, affordable, and most importantly, sustainable. Laundry is something we all dread to do, but it's something we all have to do. Yet, the way we've done it hasn't changed since the 1950s. Since then, we're still using the same 2 gigantic machines that are not designed to be convenient nor sustainable. And as a result, laundry today involves an extraordinary amount of manual labor, high costs, and an extremely long process that takes hours from start to finish. So not only is doing laundry the absolute worst, but the traditional machines we use also have a detrimental effect on the environment. Each year, people like you and I emit 550 pounds of CO2 emissions each just by doing laundry. Multiply that by hundreds of millions, if not billions, and you begin to see how big of a problem this really is. Besides emissions, toxic chemicals end up in our oceans that create algae bloom that choke out aquatic life. These traditional machines we use are so water hungry that they use 19 billion cubic meters of water every year. And with such large water consumption comes billions of tons of microplastic pollution that also ends up in our oceans and further contributes to climate change. These numbers are simply unacceptable. That's why we're turning these 2 gigantic, outdated machines into one compact, autonomous device that streamlines the process and optimizes resources to reduce water, energy, and microplastic pollution. Our product will be the world's first 2-in-1 portable washer and dryer with a fully autonomous cycle. It doesn't require any connections besides a standard electrical outlet, and its compact, ergonomic design makes it so anyone is able to do laundry wherever is most convenient for them, not just where there's a big empty room, special outlets, and complex plumbing available. Our product, which is called EVA, adapts to your unique lifestyles versus how it is today where you have to adapt to the product. On average, with traditional machines, one person uses about 42 gallons of water and 8 kilowatt hours of energy every week. But with EVA, you'll only use 17.5 gallons and 3.1 kilowatt hours of energy every week doing laundry. Because of our unique technology and the specific approach we have, we're able to save users up to 60% on their water and energy consumption. Our thesis is that fundamentally today, we're doing laundry backwards. We let our dirty clothes pile up day after day until we have a gigantic pile of clothes. And with gigantic pile of clothes, we need gigantic machines. And with gigantic machines come the amount of gigantic resource consumptions that they required. This is all backwards. That's why EVA is meant to replace your laundry hamper so your dirty clothes never pile up. So at the end of each day, simply throw your outfit in EVA and it'll take care of the rest. No need to switch loads. After it's done, simply put away your daily outfit and you're all done. If you repeat that every day, you'll never have dirty clothes ever again. So not only will we virtually reinvent how you do laundry, but we also have an exponential impact on climate change by doing so. But you don't just have to take our word for it. We're going to show users specific, real-time data based on their actual consumption so they can see exactly how they're having a positive impact on the environment by using our products, empowering them with information that used to be obscure and difficult to obtain, and motivating them to spread word about our movement. Because what we're building isn't just any other product. It's a movement that's going to flip an entire industry on its head. Take a look at some of our competitors. These are all different brands, but all these products virtually look like and work like exactly the same way. Like I mentioned, traditional machines not only make laundry dreadful, but how we use them hasn't evolved since the 1950s. These machines are not our future. They are our past. At the moment, we have incredible traction. Apart from helping everyday people, we're also helping businesses reinvent themselves for good. And we already have signed LOIs from a hotel chain and a university to deploy our products to their properties. In preparation for our launch, we already have over 60,000 people who have signed up through our website and 1,200 people who have paid us a deposit, committing to purchase at our launch. The excitement we're seeing is truly incredible. And I love learning about all the different reasons why people absolutely need what we're building. Our cost per unit is $350, which will go down as we scale. Our sales price ranges from $7.99 to $8.99, which gives us about 60% gross margins. We also have unique business models to be able to effectively serve hotels and universities. I started this company really to solve my own biggest problem. Laundry to me was the most inconvenient and inefficient thing in the world, and I was convinced there just had to be a better way to solve it. It was while I was devising a solution that I just discovered how terrible our traditional routines and machines were for the environment, and how large of an impact the right solution can make. My teammate Artem is one of the best engineers out there. For the past 10 years, he's built products for both Dyson and GE, and he has extensive experience on how to get products to market from concept all the way to production. Since October, we've built 2 more prototypes, and we're currently scheduled to launch next month through Indiegogo, where we're expected to sell over $1 million in just 30 days. We're raising our seed round to be able to mitigate our next milestones, which are to build out our team, enter production and start shipping, and finally to get to a $20 million run rate, which is about 2,000 units a month. This company is my life's mission, and I'm telling you, our products are going to be in every home, hotel room, and dorm in the world. We are building the future, and we have no choice but to succeed, and succeed we will. Thank you.
Nico, thank you very much. That was terrific. So, Chris Sacca, behind Lower Carbon Capital, the well-known VC that's leaning into investing in the sustainable climate companies of the future, talked about how it's important to be sustainable, environmentally friendly and all of that, but ultimately the product needs to be cooler, faster, better than what we have right now.
Absolutely.
How would you say this is cooler, faster, better?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, laundry today takes an absurd amount of time, from start to finish, about a few hours. And the longer we let our clothes pile up, the longer the process actually becomes. That's what's so special about Eva. You see the design is very compact, very ergonomic, and people actually, at first glance, see it as a bad thing. But it's actually on purpose. Because like this, if you never let your dirty clothes pile up, doing laundry is not what it means to do laundry today. It actually takes 1 to 2 minutes a day, which will be about 14 minutes a week, versus the amount of hours it takes today. And at the same time, if we can reduce water, energy, and microplastic pollution, it's a win-win for everybody.
So why do you think that in an industry such as this that's been with us for so long, certainly there are many folks within existing enterprises that are thinking about what the future of laundry is. Why do you think there's been such a reluctance to?
Yeah, well, these big companies that the ones that come to mind, they were all founded before World War II. So they're not exactly geared for innovation, and it's really not in their advantage to innovate exponentially. They have something that's working so well, machines that are gigantic, thousands of dollars that people keep buying year after year after year. Why would they risk changing that completely? It's not in their best incentive to really innovate and disrupt their entire business model and supply chain. That's why it's on our responsibility, the startups, to really exponentially innovate in this space.
So now it's in about a month's time, we'll be able to sign up via Indiegogo.
Yeah, you can purchase in a month.
To purchase in a month, we can try this out. but if you could just give us some idea of what have been the barriers, if you've seen it right now, sort of in product market fit.
Yeah, well, actually, it's really been the opposite.
Wow.
I had very specific ideas on how this product would be used, and every day we're learning about all these different applications of why people need it that I had never even thought of.
Oh.
So, when I first started, I thought, this is maybe just for people who don't have washers and dryers, really convenient solution. And now every day we're reading about why people need it, even if they have washers and dryers for X, Y, or Z different reason. And really, the amount of signups, paid deposits that we're getting are really setting us up to have one of the most successful campaigns in Indiegogo history. And really, I started focusing on a specific problem that specific people have, and as we're releasing this product into the world, we're learning about all the different ways why people need it that I had never even considered.
What are some, for instances?
Yeah, so one example I'll give it to you is parents with infants. So, parents normally have, or the parents that we hear, they have their washing machine in the basement, and babies go through a lot of clothes, right? So they have to keep going to the basement 3 or 4 times a day to do this and do that, and it's very inconvenient. So they would just like to have it in the baby's room, that way it can handle the baby's laundry. Also, I'll give you another example. Massage therapists, estheticians, and salons, they go through a lot of laundry every day, towels, things like that. And the last thing they want to do when they get home is do laundry. So to have this in one of these businesses and to simply just put in the laundry of the day and have it stay there is something that they've been waiting, as they describe it to me, it's their dream, something they've been waiting for forever. So I'm learning about all these different applications, not just different people, but businesses, things that could really take advantage and leverage what we're building.
Okay, so for people in the audience who would like to help propel this venture, where should they go?
Yeah, so I'll be around here. We are raising our seed round. I'm happy to chat with anybody who's interested.
All right, Nico Ramirez. Nico, thank you very much. Terrific.
Hi, my name's Olivia. And over the last 10 years or so, I've been working in the outdoor and athletic industry as a designer, from small startups to the big corporations. And I got depressed of being in the business of creating more stuff and ultimately an ironic industry of having a negative impact on people and planet when the whole point is to get people outdoors connected with nature. So I left. I went back to school, got my master's in sustainable design, and through my thesis research, I discovered that there is a unique need for people wanting to understand how to live a more sustainable lifestyle. What's my water footprint? What's my carbon footprint? What are the purchases and the moves I'm having on the planet? There was no great answer. And it turns out the average footprint in America is about 16 metric tons of CO2e. And when that comes down to it, it's kind of a 30-30-30 breakdown. 30% of it goes to your home energy use, which, by the way, is up to 7 metric tons or more a year. The other part is your diet footprint, and then the rest of it is your transportation footprint. Now, I'm not the only one curious about this. 78% of US consumers want to live a more sustainable lifestyle, and they're looking for ways to change. So this leaves retailers and brands scrambling to meet consumers where they're at. They're setting aggressive net zero targets, which I'm sure you've heard in the headlines, net zero by 2030, 2050. And there's no way they are going to get there without offsetting their carbon footprint. It's just a fact of the matter. But it's not all for nothing. People stick when you do the right thing. And as this study from McKinsey & Company shows, brands with more sales from products making environmental social governance claims have greater loyalty. That's massive. Now, the problems with traditional offsets today, however, is that there's a lack of supply because everybody is making these net zero targets, and the traditional offsets have poor data availability, which leads to poor transparency, long lead times, and low liquidity. So I introduce to you Sisteo Consumer Climate Offsets. Sisteo connects brands and their consumers through climate action and economic incentives to collectively reduce emissions, save water, and track it all with real-time data. Sisteo credits help companies grow their top-line revenue by engaging with eco-conscious consumers while reducing their corporate carbon footprint with these easy-to-transact and tracked carbon offsets. It's pretty simple here. Consumers, me, you guys, everybody gets paid to reduce their footprint. That's huge. That hasn't happened yet. And then companies can ultimately gain gain access to higher value customers and bring money spent on their offsets back to their company through Sisteo rewards. Here's how it works. Meet Riley. She's a 30-something living in Colorado and just bought a house. Riley also wants to live a more sustainable lifestyle. So she finds Sisteo, creates an account, and she connects her utilities through our API that automates and tracks your utility data. That way we can preload Riley's baseline footprint, her last 12 months of usage in water, gas, and electric, if she has all three. And she can actually know in real time how she's doing, tracking month over month, quarter over quarter, this year to last year. Once she actually reduces some of those kilowatt hours, for example, those then get generated into kilograms of CO2 carbon saved, which we then supply Riley with these Sisteo credits. Riley can then go take these credits immediately on the Sisteo Rewards Marketplace and purchase with her favorite brand partners. So think of it like a credit card points system for climate impact. So the market is massive and growing. The voluntary carbon offset market is going to be $50 billion by 2030. That's huge. And a couple quick stats on Sisteo's traction points today is that just within the last 3 weeks, we've been able to gain up to and beyond 15 reward partners and counting for our launch in April. Within that, these reward partners have committed to giving $225,000 in reward value to attract these consumers that are eco-conscious. And with that, we have a 2.6 million reach for our launch on April 22nd, Earth Day. Sisteo is backed by Techstars, along with other great investors. Our advisory board is filled with C-suite execs from places like Adobe, Oracle, and Grindr. And Sisteo is run by me, and we have an amazing fractional team of our CMO and our CTO support. Currently, we are raising at Sisteo to grow the team to expand into the data science and sales departments, along with growing our marketplace post-launch, and ultimately getting our carbon offset verified on the voluntary carbon market. Thank you for listening today. My name's Olivia, and at Sisteo, we are rewarding people to better their climate impact. Thank you.
Awesome, Olivia, that was terrific. So to start, I want to dig a little deeper on use cases, the ways in which people build their amount of carbon offsets. What are the ways? I understand how people can go spend those carbon offsets, but what are the different ways throughout daily life that people can build them and accumulate them?
Yeah, so that's the tough part here, is that all of us have different ways of life. We live in different climates, literally, whether hot, cold, different socioeconomic statuses. And so somebody's sustainable journey will be very different from the person sitting next to you. So what can you do? You might be a homeowner, you might be a renter, but on Sisteo, we have figured out ways, anything from turning off a light switch to getting a more efficient heating and cooling system installed with your utility provider, so that anybody can figure out ways to ultimately save kilowatt hours or reduce gallons that is coming out of their faucets. Bonus, on Sisteo, we've also done the hard work for the consumer up front. So we know what you should do, why you should do it in monetary emissions and water value, and how you should do it. That means connecting you with the governmental rebates that are coming down the line from IRA to make sure that you can take advantage of these sustainable and efficient home energy products coming out on the market today.
So if I understand this correctly, so you will determine different behaviors that if someone does them, that it will result in these credits, which then different organizations, Whole Foods, for example, will accept as payment.
Correct, yes, and it's all tracked automatically. So this is a very low friction, low lift product for the consumer. So you just connect your accounts like you would with a Plaid, like a NerdWallet or a Mint product. You connect your utility accounts in that way. So it's kind of like utilities, or utilities for Plaid. And that way it's super low friction, and you track real time over time, and you ultimately will see the results of your hard work in your utility bill, and then that way you save twofold on your electric bill, which is great because electric's getting pretty expensive these days. And then bonus, you get Sisteo rewards where you can go take that value and transact it with products that you might not know exist. So these can be sustainable consumer packaged goods, anywhere from multivitamins that are better for your health and produced sustainably, to better bed sheets that do not have poisonous or toxic chemicals in them. So a lot of great CPG companies on our rewards platform that people need to know more about.
Are there models, are there sort of analogous rewards programs that are helpful to look at and for us to sort of imagine that have really worked in changing consumer behavior?
Yeah, I think we can look at a lot of things. Like for starters, look at credit card rewards points. We're all obsessed with them. You know, we all use them in our daily lives, and we know they're working to our greater good. And that greater good is saving us money when we want to travel. This is the same thing for Sisteo, but it's saving us money for the long term in terms of taking better care of our home, being able to meet that personal goal of reducing our emissions or water footprints, and then ultimately shopping with better brands that are making a difference in the world.
All right, so remind us again when the launch is and how people can help.
Yeah, so if you're interested in signing up, we're launching on April 22nd, Earth Day, and you can sign up today on our waitlist at Sisteo.com. That's SUSTAIO.com. And we're also fundraising currently, so you can reach out to me personally at op@Sisteo.com.
Olivia Peterson.
My name is Arpit. I work for this company, Cash Energy. My role is being a founder CEO. And we are solving one of the holy grails, or what is considered as a missing piece in clean energy transition, storage. Now, as humans, we cannot control sun and wind to shine when we want them to, so we need to learn to store them, right? The best solution now, the batteries, are not able to store large amount of energy cost effectively. There are better solutions like pumped hydro. However, you cannot install them everywhere. Now, this is a fairly well-known problem in energy community, with people naming it as long duration storage problem. Now, I'm here to argue that storage is nothing new to energy. We have known storage since we have known energy. And can you guys guess how? Fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are these chemicals we found buried inside the earth, which are a huge reservoir of energy. We take them out of the earth, burn them. They produce a tremendous amount of heat, but unfortunately carbon dioxide, right? So what inspired us at Cash was, why can we not find another chemical reaction which produces heat, but the byproduct is not carbon dioxide? Now, easier said than done, but after years of painstaking hard work and me spending best part of my 20s doing a PhD, we present to you what we believe is the most elegant way of storing energy, our solid fuel. So it works very similar to coal, a very crude analogy, except no consequences, as in it's cheap, abundant. Every country in the world is self-sufficient in the material. However, it can also use the same infrastructure that fossil fuels have created over decades, but no emissions at all. But how does it work? So we ended up looking at all the possible chemical reactions that chemical industry knows, and then fixated on this one, which is fairly well known and very well studied. So the science part has already been done for us. Now our innovation is in taking this chemical reaction and doing it back and forth over thousands of times to store and release energy continuously. So basically what's happening is we have water coming in and out of our material, storing and releasing energy. So take a well-known chemical reaction which is known to produce a lot of heat and use our pellets to turn it into a battery. And once you're able to do that, we can use the same infrastructure that fossil fuels have created over decades. So same coal boiler, same steam turbine, everything same, right? We have a patent pending on the material as well as the integration of our material into the existing reactors. The material costs roughly $100 a ton. So, all is needed to store more energy or to scale is add more of these pellets, which cost roughly $100 a ton. US, the second largest producer in the world of the material, so supply chain issues like lithium would not exist. Every country in the world is self-sufficient in the material. It doesn't catch fire. So unlike fossil fuels, where higher the temperature, faster they burn and you have these explosions, we will not have that in our material. And the most important thing that I wanted to mention is transportability. Everything is at room temperature, even when it's charged, so you can store at one place and transport it to somewhere else when energy is needed. So very similar to coal. We have mines somewhere else, but we are producing energy around the world, right? So I'm able to dump this in the basement of a house safely, and it will store energy for more than a year, untouched, right? So because of all that reasons, we are able to store or scale to much longer duration. So if needed, we could supply a month worth of energy continuously at much lower cost. Now, long duration is a $1 trillion market. We are literally changing how we source energy. So even a modest penetration is a huge, significant revenue opportunity. Now, since we are very similar to fossil fuel, so a solid material, safely contained, releases heat, we are not limited to storing electricity. We are not just limited to value proposition that battery brings. So some of the easier value propositions or easier to get into markets, for example, industries. Industries need a lot of heat, and they're heavily dependent upon fossil fuel. So water heating, providing steam for chemical processes, is something that can be served much more easily, much more cheaply, and faster. And for those reasons, we'll be able to go to market much faster and much capital efficiently compared to anybody else. So United States Department of Energy recently announced the winner of the Energy Innovation Prize, and we were one of them. We are working with some really big energy companies. So most exciting being one energy company I cannot name, but they have a shut coal power plant. They have all this infrastructure that exists, but nobody wants to burn coal anymore. So they see our material as a drop-in replacement in all these coal power plants. So not only are we able to leverage all the infrastructure that already exists, but we can save all the jobs. That's very important. I have 50 seconds, so I'll end on this note. Like storing energy is not difficult. There are a lot of cool technologies around, but let's make sure that we are not just storing it in any way possible, but cost efficiently is very important, but also equitably. So that is one thing that differentiates us. This is a material that every country is self-sufficient, and sun and wind don't differentiate between people. It's free for everybody. So if we can learn to store it, we can make sure that everybody has access to cheap, clean energy, and we are making the world a level playing field. Thank you.
Arpit, thank you very much. So disclaimer, I former journalist and generally the slowest person in the room, so forgive for the really basic questions. But if you could just sort of walk through a typical use case, sort of start and finish, and the finish being something that we would all experience in our daily lives.
Yeah. So one example would be, let's start from the B2B business perspective. So one idea is that the coal power plants that exist today, the way they work is they will take coal, they will burn it, that produces a lot of heat. Now that heat is used to produce steam from boiling water, and that steam drives a machine called turbine. And that's how we light all these bulbs we have now. Now the coal is not there. So the value proposition, the most interesting value proposition is everything remaining same, except our material being a drop-in replacement of coal. So we can use all those infrastructure for generating electricity that exists now, same skill set, and we're able to just swap out the material with our material. So that is one value proposition. But something more relatable, like natural gas boilers that we have in our homes, so water heaters. Any kind of heating needs is something that we can serve just because it's safe to be dumped in basement of your house.
So, okay, so an energy source is turned into one of these pellets?
Yeah, so once we make these pellets, you don't need to remake them. They are ready to store and release energy over thousands of cycles. So consider them, like a very crude example would be like coal. Consider it's coal, but when you burn coal, it produces ash and you have to throw it out. But you can keep charging and discharging our material over thousands of cycles, and that's how we store energy and solve the problem of intermittency of clean energy.
And the idea is you can store energy in these pellets, but then also ship it, yes?
Also ship it.
And talk about sort of the safety or not concerns around shipping.
See, so this is basically fire retardant. It's like a ceramic, almost like sand, to be honest. So it will never have a thermal runaway, unlike fossil fuels. And once it has stored energy, it will keep it as long as you, so it's almost like coal, right? When coal is being stored, it doesn't lose energy just because it is being stored over a year. Same with the pellets. So doesn't catch fire, non-toxic, can be easily transported. Everything's at room temperature, so nothing hot or corrosive.
So is this being too simple to say this is like you're creating the modern, truly clean coal? I
guess so, yeah.
That's true. Okay, who would be a customer? Who would be someone who's buying this product?
To begin with, we see industries. Industries mainly, for example, I'll give you one example of a pharmaceutical company I cannot name, but they have plans, for example, in Europe, and to decarbonize, to move away from fossil fuel, they install a lot of solar. Now during summer, they end up having so much solar that they cannot use, and during winter, they're still buying natural gas to produce heating, so that kind of defeats the purpose of having solar in the first place. So these, lower hanging fruits where a very clear market exists is our entry. So being able to provide clean, reliable heat to industries.
So in other words, sort of with solar, it's not as though solar energy and the excess energy is being turned into these pellets.
No.
Because these pellets would actually be serving to sort of fill the void.
Yeah, yeah. So these pellets can take the solar and wind, store the energy, just like a battery. So the batteries that we use in our phones, right? Exactly same, and can discharge it when you need it, where you need it, because you can ship it.
Very cool. Competitors in the space?
Several, hot market, drawing people from all over the world, but few things cannot be beaten. Cost, like we are literally the cheapest. When I tell you, this basically comes from limestone. Like it's literally dirt. People talk about dirt cheap, it is dirt. And the second thing is like safety. So, unlike lithium-ion batteries, where there's a huge safety concerns, it's completely safe and transportable.
So if people want to help, where can they go?
I have nothing going on for 2 days. I'm hanging around. So please come and find me. I'll be around here.
Drinks, lunch, dinner, all the above.
Anywhere, 24/7.
All right.
Yeah.
Arpit Trivedi.
I'm Trina from Overpost, and we build automation systems for insect farming. Livestock produce an estimated 14 to 18% of greenhouse gases globally, and we're expected to consume about 14% more meat in the next 10 years. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, but pets, dogs and cats, consume about 25% of animal meat in the United States. That's about 22.5 billion pounds of animal meat each year, or roughly 180 million trinas that are consumed just by pets in the United States. Insects produce protein more efficiently and are a really fantastic alternative protein source due to their ability to consume byproducts and waste streams and convert those materials into high-quality amino acids that can be used all across our agricultural supply chain. They grow quickly in compact spaces. They require very little feed per unit of protein, very little water, and very little energy. And compared to warm-blooded livestock, warm-blooded livestock produce around 2 to 50 times more greenhouse gas emissions per kilogram of protein as compared to insects. So replacing even a small percentage of pig, chicken, cow in dog and cat food ends up having an enormous climate impact. However, insects are extremely difficult to grow cost-effectively at scale due to a historic lack of R&D. So that's what we're changing. Our species of focus is a type of darkling beetle larvae known as the superworm. And the superworm actually has gotten a lot of media attention recently due to, fun fact, its remarkable ability to digest styrofoam and polystyrene plastics. So that just goes to show that these things will eat just about anything. They're little garbage disposals, and they can produce more protein per unit of feed and grow 5 times faster than other commercially grown insect species. Now, unfortunately, they are notorious for being near impossible to breed. Don't fret, Overpost has developed some special technology that allows us to do that very efficiently. We have deep experience in hardware, software, and biology, and we combine these unique disciplines to generate IP around feeding, watering, cleaning, harvesting, breeding, and growth optimization. Our target market is the pet food industry, which is worth $115 billion annually. And as I mentioned, pets consume about 25% of animal meat in the United States. This market is hot and growing, with big players like Purina, Mars, and Petco already beginning to create and launch products that are based around insect protein. It's actually a hypoallergenic protein ingredient for dogs in a lot of cases, so there's a lot of really interesting demand in this space. We recently sold our first 1,200 pounds of insect protein meal to a dog food startup in Chicago. And right now we're finishing up a food grade processing facility in Mississippi that we're expecting to finish at the end of March. But while insect meal is a new product for us, we've actually been able to generate significant revenue by selling live insects into the exotic pet market. Think aquariums, zoos, pet stores, reptile breeders, 12-year-olds with bearded dragons. A lot of people don't realize that the market for live insects is worth $175 million annually, which has given us a really great head start in the ability to generate revenue from an early stage. So this has supercharged our growth, bringing in this high margin product that we've been selling, which we actually sell more than $100,000 per month. And I like to think of this as a lily pad approach where we can hop profitably from market to market as we cut costs and scale production. So things like R&D, operational improvements, and economies of scale are all going to contribute to us moving from live insects to insect meal for people and pets, and then from insect meal to ingredients for markets like aquafeed. Right now, we have 30 full-time employees split between our 2 facilities in Mississippi and Florida, which we have about 50,000 square feet of total insect rearing space, where we generate about 20 million insects per month. My background is in data analysis and software. I sold my first startup to Tableau. My co-founder is a mechanical engineer who comes from the biotech space and previously built RNA synthesis robots at Syntago. Our research manager, Chris Edwards, comes from Google, where he worked in the life science division building mosquito rearing robots for Verily's flagship project, Debug. Now, growing insects cost effectively at scale is not something that we've been able to do before in human history and requires a lot of deep tech solutions. So combining multiple science and engineering disciplines is really what's needed to get us past the boundaries of what we know about our species in terms of modern science. Our VP of Sales, Michael Nell, just joined us this quarter, and he came to us with 36 years of pet food industry experience. And for decades, he's been watching protein supply chain issues in the pet food industry. So when his industry friends said, "Mike, why are you joining this weird insect farming startup in Florida?" He said, "Because it's the future." So our plan is to open our 3rd facility, 100,000 square foot rearing space, by the end of this year. And with that new facility, we'll be able to roll out our latest technological developments and begin making a real dent in our global carbon footprint. Thank you.
Awesome, Trina, thank you. So let's just double down on the sustainability impacts of this. You talked about how the markets of the pet food market, the exotic animal market that wants to purchase these worms and insects. Talk about and how producing insects and worms at scale and selling to these markets actually results in much, much more, say, sustainability.
Right, and so as mentioned, animal meat produces a lot of greenhouse gases.
Yep.
And part of the reason for that is because the animals that we eat tend to be warm-blooded. And so they're using a lot of the feed that they consume and making body heat with that. Whereas insects, poikilothermic, cold-blooded animals, they take that feed and produce biomass instead. So on a pound-for-pound basis, and it depends on the animal that you're looking at. Cows are the worst in terms of carbon emissions per unit of protein. Then you have pigs, and then you have chickens. And then insects are about half the impact of chickens. So regardless of what animal you're replacing, you're still getting a pretty massive carbon impact.
So as we think about your business, is in a way like how we've thought about like products like Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat, and how by actually having these plant-based meats that we would eat, it actually can reduce climate warming emissions. In a way, you're exactly doing that too as we think about pet food, for example. Yeah,
so this is actually a really important point, and I think there's a common misunderstanding of protein. And the key here is that not all protein is created equal. And I personally have been a vegetarian for 25 years, so I love Impossible Burgers and veggie burgers, and I consider that a really important part of the climate solution. However, the protein that's produced by plants does not have the same amino acid composition as protein produced by animals. You really have to look at the structure of the protein. And so there's some really important missing nutritional components there, and especially when you're looking at diets for dogs and cats. Cats are considered obligate carnivores, and if you try to feed them a vegan diet of Impossible Burgers, your cat might end up at the vet very sick. So it's really important for us to have multiple different types of proteins that are going into our food chain, but also to make sure that we're getting the right nutrients out of it.
Arguably, this is sort of a better type of protein you're bringing into the market, for at least as it relates to pets and animals.
Yes, it's a very high quality protein. I would argue that Impossible Burger is more delicious and crickets are more nutritious.
So give us a sense, and I'm curious as you're talking about the farms, and your farm here in Florida is about 2 hours west of here. When you're producing insects at scale, for instance, what does one of your farms look like here in Mississippi?
Lots of bugs. I mean, it looks a lot more farmy than you might imagine, right? I think there's this vision of insect protein as the future, and people are imagining these lab-like environments of vertical farming and conveyor belts everywhere, and everyone's in white lab coats. And if you look at the history of agriculture, if you look at the poultry industry in the United States, it doesn't look like a lot of people in lab coats. It looks like a farm. And I think it's really important to make the distinction between technology and lab-like conditions, that you don't need to create a lab that with white walls and stainless steel everything in order to grow animals. And you really need to think about your unit costs in this industry. The capital expenditures are really important. And so the poultry industry is amazing for its ability to figure out the lowest cost solution for growing lots and lots of animals. I think there are some things to be learned from that. So,
very quickly, we're at time, but
yeah.
So you've talked about for markets, exotic animals right now and pet food. Do you see other markets on the horizon too for this product?
Yes, so we're launching an insect meal, and that will be sold into the pet food market and into the human food market later down the road. There's also opportunities for organic poultry, backyard poultry, and further down the road from that, there's opportunities in aquafeed.
All right, folks, if they want to help propel this venture.
I have a booth all the way back there. It's the only one with bugs at it. And you can find me at Trina@overpost.com.
Awesome. Trina Chasen, thank you very much.
Thanks.
It's awesome. Thank you.
I'm really excited to be here to talk to you about Carbon Counts. Carbon Counts is a mobile gaming company, and we're on a mission. The mission of Carbon Counts is to inspire millions of people worldwide to take individual and collective action on climate change. And we have a game called Everforest. Everforest is a play-to-plant adventure, we say, which is you play the game, you build and you grow and you nurture a magical, flourishing everforest in the game on your phone, and we plant a real everforest in the real world. We think that this is a big idea. Now, culture and entertainment have for a long time been forces in terms of driving impact. Silent Spring, for example, was instrumental in helping ban the pesticide DDT worldwide. Live Aid raised $127 million for famine relief. And of course, Inconvenient Truth played a critical role in changing the dynamic and the discussion around climate change worldwide. But the interesting thing about each of those different elements is that when you watch a movie, you watch it once, generally. And you are a passive observer of the movie, whereas in the case of games, games are things that you do in some cases every single day for years in a row. And what also happens is that you are the protagonist of the game. You are an agent in actually making the game happen. So when you think about Pokemon Go got 1 billion people to walk 14 billion miles. Now 14 billion miles is a lot. That's the equivalent of walking from Miami to Pluto and back twice. So that's a lot of walking. And games are, just so you know, bigger from a revenue perspective than movies and music combined. And games like Pokemon Go and Candy Crush have made nearly $8 billion individually as free-to-play games. So this is a big, big market. Now, Everforest, as I mentioned, is a play-to-plan adventure. We were inspired by the notion that people all over the world see that climate change is a major problem, but they personally do not feel like there's anything they can do to help. So the idea is to use a free-to-play, fun-first game that actually helps people move from being helpless to being a helper, from powerless to being powerful. And, excuse me, the notion, as I mentioned, is that you play the game, we plant trees on your behalf, and the world can prosper. We were originally inspired in part by a group that Alibaba is doing in China that's called Ant Forest. Now, Ant Forest is a thing where you do it socially. It's a gamified experience that they do in China, and you can do everyday low-carbon activities, sort of the way you do with Pokemon Go, real-world activities, and you grow a virtual tree, and then they plant a real tree on your behalf. So what's amazing about what Alibaba did is there are 900 million people in China that have smartphones, and they got 600 million people to do this tree planting app in China. So that's basically the equivalent of, with Candy Crush and Pokemon Go having about 1 billion people. If you extrapolated what Ant Forest did in China to the whole world, that's over 4.5 billion people involved in this. So we think there's a really big opportunity with a really great game to actually get people to take action and inspire them to do more. So the game, as you can see, is got sort of Disney quality. In fact, all of our team's artists all came from Disney. They were involved in building a game called Club Penguin, which is the largest children's game in the world. And the idea is that you're growing this magical Everforest in the game on your phone. You're befriending and meeting and discovering these characters, these animals that are cute and fun. They also are real-world animals that behind the scenes you can learn about them in sort of a David Attenborough sense of these are cool animals in the real world. And you're solving progressive puzzles in the game, like similar to the way you do with Candy Crush. These are mechanics that people are very familiar with in terms of playing games. And again, the game plants real trees in the real world. Now, building mobile games is hard. It takes about 2 to 3 years to build a game. We're 18 months into production of this game. It's live in 3 markets, Sweden and the Netherlands and the Philippines. We're going to be launching globally later this summer. But we have a team of folks that is phenomenal, 30 people that come from great game companies that have built and run games that have reached 500 million people worldwide. So super successful folks. One of my colleagues on the top there is Brett Jenks. He's an Aspen Institute fellow himself, and he's an expert in sustainability as well as driving consumer behavior change. He's the CEO of a nonprofit called Rare. The person who's underneath Brett on the right-hand side is Nicole, and Nicole was one of the sustainability leads at Disney with Club Penguin, and she is our Chief Impact Officer. She and I were in Africa in this past November, and we were vetting partners. Her experience is actually working with partners. So the game has to be successful, not only at having people play the game, but actually has to be successful at planting 100 million trees in the next several years, 1 billion trees over the next decade. So these are folks with one of our partners, Earth Lungs. And what was amazing about the experience of working with them is that, Priscilla, for example, in the middle, this is actually providing her a job that's helping her actually educate her children. So not only are we actually helping plant trees that are going to take carbon out of the atmosphere, but we are actually employing people and giving them better lives in the global south. Now, we believe that trees are the entry point to getting people more engaged. The game, like Ant Forest, will be social in nature. So you'll be able to play with your family and friends, and it will raise people's awareness globally about climate change. It will make them feel empowered and ultimately get them to take other actions on top of that. So the notion is that not only are we going to plant 1 billion trees and sequester a gigaton of carbon, but the idea is that we're also going to have people doing everyday low-carbon activities in their lives that are going to give them progress in the game as well. And so we think that when you put this all together, we have a $1 billion business that can actually have a $1 trillion impact. Thank you very much.
Michael, thank you very much. That was so cool. So let's start with revenue model.
Yes.
How does it work?
So free-to-play games basically make money 2 ways primarily. One is through what are called in-app purchases. So if you play Candy Crush, you buy gold bars that they manufacture out of thin air, and that you get progress in the game for doing that. That represents about 60% of the revenue in these games. The other part is from advertising, and most of advertising in games today are rewardable ads, which means you don't have to watch the ad, but if you watch the ad, you get progress in the game. And so that's the basic business model. Games are very, very profitable, which allows us to spend money to support trees.
Wow. So what sort of the typical user, how old would you think a user is, your target market?
Yeah. So if you think about the typical Candy Crush player, for example, it's actually women disproportionately between the ages of 20 and 50. But we think that this is a game that has an opportunity to be relevant for everybody in the world. So whether it's the moms that are relaxing at the end of the day, or it's men, it's women, it's kids, it's everybody.
Wow. Okay. So talk about sort of the rewards. You're starting with trees.
Yep.
Planting a tree is something that we can all identify with, and probably at one point or another in our lives, we've done that.
Yep.
Talk about, and you had a slide on here, but the other parts of life that will be included in this.
So basically, we see the trees as an entry vehicle to getting people to engage. And trees matter. There used to be 6 trillion trees on Earth before people came around, and we've now taken down 3 trillion of them. And so we think there's a real opportunity to put some of them back, which is not only good for the climate and also good for all the animals and all of the rest of us that live on the Earth. But the idea is that if you not only can get people to be excited about planting trees in the real world, you can also get them to do things like walk more, take public transportation, maybe eat a little bit more of a plant-rich diet, for example, or simply be aware and count the number of solar panels they see on roofs. And so when you're more aware of what's going on in the world, you're going to ultimately be a better consumer. You're more likely to get an electric heat pump in your house instead of a gas furnace, or to get an electric stove instead of a gas stove. And so we want to help people over time be more educated, be better voters, make better decisions about the products that they buy.
Talk about how you sort of inspire people to use the game. By that, I mean, is it, the prospect of actually doing good things in the world, building a more sustainable planet, or is it something else that really captures the imagination, or is it a combination of both?
So we do think that there is a little bit of a 1 + 1 = 3 or more when it comes to marrying play with purpose. So we think that matters, and we think the example with Alibaba shows a real example of that, where 2/3 of all the people in China were doing this tree planting app. But at the end of the day, it has to be a fun game to start. You're not going to play a game that just actually plants trees for a long time if it's not a fun game, which is the reason why we have such a phenomenal team of people that have built so many successful games. So the idea is build a great game, layer on the fact that people can then feel purpose and action in what they're doing, and then combined, that will actually have a huge impact.
So for people who want to experience it, where do they go? And people who want to help, what can they do?
Our website is carboncounts.tech. You can register to get early access to the game. We, as I mentioned, are only live in 3 countries that are not here in the United States, but that's coming later. And if you want to talk to me about what we're doing, I'm very happy to talk to you individually. Sure.
Also, and for people who want to help, they can...
We've raised $7 million from leading venture capitalists and other folks. We are going to do a seed extension on what we're doing. We're going to end up raising probably an A round later this summer, but right now we're actually talking to folks right now about doing the seed extension, as I mentioned. So
got it.
Very happy to talk to you about that.
Awesome. Michael Evenson. Michael, thank you.
Thank you all.
That was awesome. That was great.